Let's start this show on the road. Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Sedro-Woolley City Council Meeting. Please rise for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If you got enough money. Okay. The other side. 3. Okay. For the record, we got 2 council members on vacation, Sandstrom and Galbraith, so they'll be here next time, I hope. The rest of the council knows the drill. If there's something on the consent calendar that you'd like to discuss further, let me know. We'll pull it off. If not, I'm entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar A through C.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the consent calendar items A through C.
Second.
Okay, we got a motion by Councilmember Wagoner and a second by Councilmember Cornegay to approve the consent calendar A through C. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed unanimous. Okay, this is...
Here's the fun part.
Boy, this is going to be something that'll probably never be repeated. 4 policemen at the same time. So I'm going to come up and swear you in, or you guys come up here and I'll be over there too, and we'll read this. And then we got to sign everything. So I need Zach. You want to introduce him, Chief?
Sure. Zach Carroll, first one here. Austin McComb right there. Brian Hull right there. And Jet Cates right there.
Okay.
These are 2 guys that we borrowed from Burlington, and these are the 2 guys that just to brag a little bit. This guy here was number 3 in the class. How many? 30. 30?
That's great.
All right.
You guys got to line up right here in front of the mayor.
And you guys have done this before, so you guys are pros at it. So you guys line up right here, and then we'll turn and thank everyone. Okay, raise your right hand. Okay. I, your name.
I,
Do solemnly swear that I am a citizen of the United States and the state of Washington.
do solemnly swear that I am a citizen of the United States and the state of Washington.
That I will support the Constitution and laws of the United States and the Go ahead. And the constitutional laws of the state of Washington.
And the constitutional laws of the state of Washington.
And will do to the best of my judgment, skill, and ability.
And will do to the best of my judgment, skill, and ability.
Truly, faithfully, and impartially.
Truly, faithfully, and impartially.
Perform the duties of office of police officer in.
Perform the duties of police officer.
And for the city of Sedro-Woolley, Skagit County, Washington.
And for the city of Sedro-Woolley, Skagit County, Washington.
As such duties are prescribed by law, so help me God.
And such duties as prescribed by law, so help me God.
Good job. I love that.
All right.
Good work. Like I said, I don't think you'll ever see Ford ever again. This is great. Thank you.
Retirees, maybe.
Want to say something?
Aaron walked down to the squad room the other day, and there were how many people in there, Aaron? 6 or 7? And it was a little bit overwhelming at times. We don't have enough places for people to sit. So Bill is working on a new workstation for us. I had to move into the spare car. We ran out of cars. I'm driving the Blue Bees. But we're getting them out on the road, and I think we've gone through every spare piece of equipment, workable uniform, and dime in the budget to get them all outfitted in there out on the road as we speak. And we get Katie in 2 weeks, the 5th. So
So
that'll give us a total of what?
17.
17.
17.
17.
You guys have signed this ticket. Austin, Brian.
Congratulations, gentlemen.
Awesome.
Welcome aboard. I drive a silver truck, just let it go.
You guys look great, but who are the old guys? You all look 12 to me.
Yeah, kids.
My, oh my.
That's awesome.
We're very happy to have you.
Mr. Mayor, before we move on, I'd like to recognize one of our city employees who was instrumental in hiring these officers, and that's Teresa Nesheim in Finance, who stepped up to the role of our Civil Service Secretary and probably is more relieved than anybody else in the city that we are not currently hiring any police officers. So we really appreciate her work.
Well, we can all sleep better now.
Profits in the donut shop will go up.
Maybe we'll get it on our
All right, now we're going to go to,
More fun stuff.
yeah, I'm going to read the, I have to sign, this one's unsigned.
They would probably be fine.
Okay, this time we're going to do a special recognition honoring Don Wick, the Executive Director of EDASC. And it's a resolution 92215, and I'm going to read it. You got to get up here, Don.
Come on. Coming up here.
I'm going to read it from down here, and I'll come out.
He's Norwegian. You got to show him where to stand.
Well, he's from Ballard, you know. They're tough.
Right there.
I agree. Okay, we have a resolution honoring and recognizing Don Wick for 28 years of service to the citizens of Sedro-Woolley as the Executive Director of EDASC. Whereas Don Wick has served the citizens of Sedro-Woolley, Skagit County, and Northwest Washington as Director of EDASC since 1987. Whereas Don Wick has been directly engaged in business recruitment, business development, small business support, and job creation throughout his career. And whereas Don Wick's focus has remained laser sharp on job creation, job expansion, and job retention for Skagit County, with a particular emphasis on living wages, whereas a number of Sedro-Woolley businesses and companies can trace their decision to locate here to direct recruitment efforts led by Don, and whereas a majority of the City Council, I don't know why it's not everyone, but majority of the City Council of Sedro-Woolley desires to honor Don for his career of service and to wish him a joyful and well-deserved retirement. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Sedro-Woolley as follows. The City Council does hereby recognize and honor Don Wick, who spent a career creating jobs in Skagit County. We wish you a happy retirement. Thank you. Now we're going to do in recognition a limerick that I'm going to try to say, but someone else wrote it.
And I apologize in advance.
Yeah.
But this will be section 2 of the resolution.
It's not a Norwegian one either. So anyways, in recognition of Don Wick, with jobs in mind, he acted darn quick. In convening this meeting, we regaled him with singing to wish Don the retirement of his pick.
Thank you very much.
I wasn't going to sing it, too. I saw that singing part. So this is now passed by the majority, again, of the members of Sedro-Woolley this 22nd. And
It's not passed yet.
I would say...
We need a motion.
Yeah, we need a motion right now.
I'd like to make a motion that we pass Resolution 922, TAC 15, a resolution honoring the Honorable Don Wick for 28 years of service to the citizens of Sedro-Woolley and Skagit County for his role as Executive Director of the Economic Development Association of Skagit County.
Are we going to get a second?
Second.
Okay. We got a motion by Councilmember Limley, a second by Councilmember Cornegay, pass Resolution 925-15, a resolution honoring and recognizing Don Wick. I'm going to come out and sign it. But all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All against? Looks like you got everyone.
You're blue and white. Smart move.
I just want to say he's also quite a personal mentor. You've been amazing as far as helping people every day who don't even own businesses. So, thank you.
And the other thing is the guy makes the perfect Grinch.
Yes, he does.
You gotta-
Yes, please don't stop doing that.
It makes a pretty good highball, too.
So we can get those guys when they come back from vacation.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, you need a picture, camera? Who wants that picture?
Here, you take one with mine, too.
How about a selfie? Can you get one of those sticks?
Yes, what the heck?
Get a selfie stick?
I just got back from here. Everybody has those sticks. Oh, yeah, the city.
Here's one, too.
I'll get my
Can you
eyeballs
hold
off.
this up while we do it?
You got to pretend to be receiving it again.
Okay. You're giving me this, is it
I better have it straight, the right side up.
right side up, so it looks...
We don't want someone to go, look at that, they're Norwegians.
Thank you. So we're looking at the camera?
I don't know, look. He's a pro at it, man.
Yeah, he's right.
He's done it a few times.
I don't get one here.
Smile with your bottom teeth, right?
We got you.
Should we get one with the council in the background?
Well, we can get everyone. How about everybody in the audience?
Thanks, you guys, that's very, very nice.
Thank you.
Well
I
earned,
love
Don.
Sedro-Woolley. This is a great community. It's a great, great town, so thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see. Thank you.
Happy retirement, sir.
Hey, I just wanted to say something really quick. Is when I asked Don if he would be our Grinch for our parade, he actually didn't know what the Grinch does. And he actually acted it out so perfectly when he says, what is it that the Grinch does? I don't know what a Grinch is supposed to do. And it was like, that was just so perfect. And I'm like, you got it right there. You just nailed it. Just be yourself. Thank you.
He's not a Oh, my.
Okay, we come to public comment, and this is the time you'd speak about something that you want to speak about. It's not on the agenda. Come on up. Okay, we'll close that time.
I was going to say,
On cue.
perfect timing.
That time. Hello, I'm Corianne Jensen. I live at 739 Stapp Road. I am interested in, I'm the vice president of the Sedro-Woolley Arts Council, and I'm interested in getting community art project aimed towards the youth at the skate park. So I would like to know if anyone would like to have a further conversation as to how we can proceed forward, because I know that there's a lot of renovations going on at the ballpark. Excuse me, I have a cold. So I'd like to be able to follow up with someone about that, and also I would like to do some more promotions with the for the skate competition. I was thinking of maybe tying in an art project along with the skate competition.
That would be fine with the skate people.
Yeah, but I was thinking of a rock or a wall or something, like some kind of graffiti wall, and I'd like to know where the placement of that, because I don't want to have it too close to the...
Are you talking about something permanent?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, then it takes
Never
everybody,
change.
I would think.
Right. So it's not on the agenda, but it's just something I wanted to have on record so that maybe we can follow up in a couple of weeks.
Yeah,
So we
can think about it. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Just want to
Talk more about it.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Corianne.
Anyone else? Okay, we will close public comment, and we'll go to a public hearing. And this is a second reading. And this would be from Aaron on the solid waste changes relating to commercial recycling and food and yard waste.
All right, so you saw this at your last council meeting, and the only change that was made from last meeting to this meeting was the reorganization of the rates into a differently formatted table. Otherwise, the ordinance is the same. We are continuing to move along with all sorts of pieces of this puzzle of implementing this program. Later on your agenda, you have a first reading on a contract with Skagit Soils. Your next meeting, you're going to have a contract from Waste Management, which I now have in draft form. It was too late to get you tonight and is not yet ready for council review. But we are definitely moving quickly. A new employee will be on board here in about a week. Continuing public outreach, and with the adoption of this ordinance on the commercial recycling in particular, we'll be able to begin outreach to our businesses in the city. So we're looking for any input from a public hearing, and after that we'll be requesting adoption of the ordinance. Are there any questions I can answer? I guess for the public who might be interested in this and who weren't here last time, there are no proposed changes in rates. If you're currently a yard waste customer, your rate would be static between your current yard waste account with Waste Management and your new yard waste account with the city. This will decrease, well, I shouldn't say decrease, this will delete or postpone the significant increase that had been proposed by Waste. So that's a very positive thing from my perspective. You'll also see new containers for yard waste. So everyone who's got a yard waste container will be swapped out, brand new container, all at the larger size. So other than that, it's really just continuing to move this program forward that we've been working on now for several months.
I went through it and it was kind of bland. I didn't see anything that jumped out that bothered me.
Well, I had the one section that you have to read upside down and at high speed. I'm just kidding. Yeah, no, it's a pretty vanilla. And in fact, I mentioned last time, I mentioned it again this time, we're not very happy with the way that chapter is organized, and we would like to bring to the council sometime this fall a rewrite of the chapter, not to make substantive changes, but to change the way it reads, to have the sections kind of tie back in together. It's not very user-friendly, so that is something we hope to bring back to you in the future.
Which has nothing to do with rates.
Would not have anything to do with rates. Yeah, it's again just the look and feel and readability and understandability of the chapter itself.
So I'm going to open the public hearing at 7:20 on this solid waste rate change relating to commercial recycling, curbside, food, and yard waste. And state your name and address for the record, and limit your time to 3 minutes, and don't all come rushing up at once.
So, Aaron, in the draft ordinance that we have, it says that this was published in the city newspaper, but there's a blank there of the date.
Oh, yeah, we need to fill those dates in. It was published on July 6th and July 13.
Okay.
So I'll close the public hearing now at 7:20 and 30 seconds. And council, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt ordinance 1818, TAC 15, an ordinance adjusting solid waste rates to accommodate the commercial recycling and curbside food and yard waste.
Lindley? Okay. We got a motion by Councilmember Wagoner, a second by Councilmember Limley to approve ordinance 1818, TAC 15. Is that the right one? Yeah.
Yes.
An ordinance amending and adding sections to Chapter 8.04 of the Sedro-Woolley Municipal Code to establish solid waste utility rates and charges for commercial recycling and residential food and yard waste. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed unanimous.
Aaron, I don't know if it's pertinent or not, or whether it makes a difference, but punch cards are available at the site, not just at City Hall for purchase. This just says purchase available at City Hall, but you can buy them on site.
That's true.
So we will go to unfinished business, item 8, and this is a Porter Skagit proposal regarding Northern State, and this is following the July 17th meeting, and this would be Aaron.
Yeah, so I'd like to recognize that Ann Sweeney is in the audience tonight. She's hiding in the far southwest corner.
I thought you lived in Olympia.
And used to live in Olympia. She's formerly from Olympia. She's now from Northern State. She's become a regular fixture here in Skagit County as this project has progressed and has been really great to work with for everyone involved. So what you have in your packet tonight is just the two-page executive summary, pages 28 and 29 of the packet. This is what you were given at your last meeting, and that's what you're being asked to act upon. Now, I put on your council days a rather thick packet tonight as late materials. What this includes is the motion that we're asking for tonight, which is support for the proposal that the port's making based upon the executive summary, but knowing that you are an inquisitive bunch, this also includes the almost but not quite final draft of the actual proposal in detail, which is about 40 pages. So I'm not asking you to read the proposal and vote on it, but I am asking you to vote on the proposal as it was presented in the executive summary. And the timing on this is it's not critical, but the objective is to have the proposal from the port to DES by the end of July. The county is scheduled to review and possibly take action on a motion that's the same as the one that you see on the memo on Monday. And this is something that DES has said, we really like how the local community is working hand in hand in partnership, and we would appreciate it if the local community would tell us that we like the proposal. So that's really the purpose of this, is to continue to wave the flag of partnership and show the state that we continue to be working together and that we're supportive of what the port's asking them to do, which essentially is to allow this property to be transferred to the port in a parcel-by-parcel basis over time, initially in the format of a long-term lease, but ultimately in the format of a permanent property transfer to local control. And there's obviously a lot more detail in the proposal. I also thought you might enjoy seeing some of the work from the consultants in the adaptive reuse, showing the Olmsted design, the layout, the buildings, some of the visioning for possible future buildings, etc. Are there any questions about this?
So basically what you're saying is, what we're doing is we're just saying we support this. We're not binding the city to nothing. We're just saying we think it's a good idea and we're backing it.
Right. As partners, we're supportive of the port's proposal, and we'd like the state to say yes.
I'm for it.
And I've got a draft motion there on the memo that's late materials that would be what the county's considering on Monday.
Mr. Mayor, I move to support and endorse the proposal from Port of Skagit to the State of Washington Department of Enterprise Services for the transition of Northern State property as outlined in the executive summary presented at the joint meeting of Skagit County, Port of Skagit, and City of Sedro-Woolley held July 17th, 2015.
Second.
And that's a mouthful. And it's steak night at the bullpen.
Okay, we got a motion by Councilmember Wagoner, a second by Councilmember Cornegay to support and endorse the proposal from the Port of Skagit to the State of Washington Department of Enterprise Services for the transition of the Northern State property as outlined in the executive summary presented at the joint meeting of Skagit County, Port of Skagit, and the City of Sedro-Woolley held on July 17, 2015. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed unanimous. Thank you. We will go to a new business. Item 9, Skagit Soils Contract. This is a first reading, and this would be from Aaron.
And this is a very unexciting contract. It's on your agenda because it's expected to cost us about $28,000 or so in a year. We run about 1,000 tons, we estimate. So it just exceeds our signature threshold authority over in the executive branch without your approval. But this is the contract that would allow us to take yard waste, food, and compost to Skagit Soils for disposal. So that's something unless there's any questions or concerns, I'll put it on your consent calendar for next time.
It looks like one of those. Okay, we will go to item 10, and this is an STP call for project grant applications for the SR 20 and 9 Township intersection improvement, and this would be for Mark.
I believe I mentioned to council at the last session that there was a pending emergency call for projects to provide some additional projects in the queue at Skagit Council of Governments to be able to obligate the federal funds that they have allocated to them on an annual basis. So this is the project that we've elected to submit for your approval. It is intersection improvements at R20 and the S09 Township intersection. Basically, what this is made for the north and south lanes is it converts the existing line left center turn lanes into a dedicated left and then a center right turn lane combination. It would also add a right turn lane on the east leg of Highway 20 where there isn't presently one there. That's down just south of the Kennedy Lodge Yard. There already is one on the west leg, so this would basically make the entire intersection have better capacity, and with these signal regulations to go along with this, we do have to convert the existing fan wire system into a mass type system like we have at our other intersection, and this way the sidewalk just go along with all of that. I'm estimating we've got a preliminary estimate from TSI, who's assisting with us, a little less than $500,000. So the numbers I have in the estimate were from what you approved in our tip back on the 24th. The actual application is going to go in just for the design phase, which is probably going to be somewhere between $60,000 and $70,000. So we're seeking your authorization for the mayor to sign the grant application and staff to see the grant.
Mark, could you, I heard $500,000 in there somewhere, but I don't see $500,000 here. Could you say that again, please?
This just authorizes us to submit the application. We don't have an actual number that you need.
What's the actual project cost, the $500,000? Yeah, that's where the $500,000.
Okay.
That's $500,000.
Thanks.
Construction, that would be for the entire project, and the design part of it is part of it. That would be somewhere around $60,000. That's what would actually be the amount that would be submitted for, is just the design.
And then you have to chase money to do it.
That's right, and as we've discussed numerous times, having a design in the can just gives us that much more of a leverage towards the construction.
I don't know how he does it. He's ready to go.
I'm in support of it.
So we need a motion. He wants to make a motion?
Okay.
I move that we sign and staff to submit the STP call for projects grant application for the SR20, SR9 North Township intersection improvements project.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Cornegie, a second by Councilmember Loy, to authorize the mayor to sign and staff to submit the STP call for projects grant application for the SR20, SR9 North Township intersection improvements project. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed unanimous. Okay. Thank you. All right, get that. We will go to jail medical, an amendment to the jail interlocal, and this would be Aaron.
The two items for your consideration tonight, and I am looking for action on both if you're comfortable with it. The first is the jail medical agreement. This is something that we've talked about a number of times, most recently, though, back at the end of January. As you will recall, when we developed the jail interlocal agreement, we at the City of Sedro-Woolley pushed for a risk-sharing model for dealing with jail medical. We were unable at that time to get that into the jail interlocal agreement, and the language in that agreement said that jail medical would be allocated as per state law or subsequent agreement. There have been some issues this year with some of our sister parties not being happy with the allocation, and that opened the door to a new conversation about what we should do about jail medical. And collectively, the 5 parties, which is the 4 cities in the county, have tentatively agreed to what you see in your packet, subject to our individual city council approval process. So what this agreement would do is essentially pool our cost based upon our prior experience. And you can see, if you page through to about page 50 of the packet, page 9 of the agreement, we're proposing to roll both the inmate medical as well as the fit for jail costs into the pool. Just a quick note on fit for jail. When the police department arrests somebody and intends to take them to jail, depending upon their physical or mental condition, they may need to be seen by a medical provider before the jail will take them. This could range from an open wound, an infection, a broken bone, blood, acting funny, whatever it may be. There's not exactly a super clear criteria, at least from my perspective, on when it's required and when it isn't. And that also changes depending on how the jail is staffed, whether they have a nurse on duty or not, for example. One of the reasons to put fit for jail in, though, is we were getting into a sticky situation where Sedro-Woolley might grab somebody, pull somebody or whatever, they get a hold of somebody who has a Mount Vernon warrant, and the person needs a fit for jail. And the fit for jails were varying in cost, with Anacortes paying a different rate than Sedro-Woolley pays. That's different than Burlington and Mount Vernon were paying because of our different hospitals. So what we noticed, and you can see that's a little bit reflected in the fit for jail costs, what we noticed is that there was a disincentive to the general countywide policy of you catch them, you process them. So it might be that the Sedro-Woolley guy gets the bad guy who needs to go to jail, but now they're worried about spending the money on the fit for jail. So what do? Do you call Mount Vernon and say, hey, I've got one of your guys, do you want to come get him? Or I'm taking him for a fit for jail, do you want to approve the payment? Or those sorts of things. So it became kind of a sticky situation to imagine officers in the field at the moment of arrest making those decisions. Just didn't make sense. And at least for me, I argued pretty strongly that that's a disincentive for officers to go arrest bad guys who need to go to jail. And that seemed to be the sentiment that was prevailing after a number of these meetings. That's why that's in there, is this way, no matter where you catch them, doesn't matter whose warrant it is, it's a jail cost. So it's rolled in, we have fixed costs. So for Sedro-Woolley, this will give us a predictable payment, something that we've long hoped for. This really is very good for us in that we only have 2 areas of our budget that are kind of wide open with lack of predictability. One were jail inmates, and the other were our our left one, retirees. And everything else we can manage a budget with pretty solid predictability. Those 2 areas have virtually unlimited exposure. What this does is limit our exposure, at least in the current year, and if there's an extreme case, then the group, if there's an extreme case anywhere in the 5 partners' systems, the groups then pay moving forward. So it softens that blow, which I think, especially for us, is valuable because we don't have the same level of cash available to deal with these as some of our other entities. So the only other thing I'd note on this is there's a mechanism built into this agreement under 2A, which says that after January 1 of 2019, so basically let's live with it for a few years, if 3 of the 5 partners decide they're not happy, those 3 can trigger a process that requires us to go back to the table. Because remember, our jail interlocal agreement has a 30-year life, and we're only a year or so into it. So 3 of the 5 can say, we're not so happy with the way this medical's going. partner X is just really costing a lot. They're bringing people into jail that's not prudent to bring in. So we can trigger that, and there's a process that requires us to meet. If we can't come to agreement on revisions after 4 meetings and 6 months in time, then this agreement actually ends and we return to the chaos that is our current situation, which is state law or subsequent agreement. And that was a bit of a hotly debated point, with one side of that being, well, let's have a default that we agree to so we have predictability, and the other side being, no, let's leave it the way it is so we're all forced to try to come to resolution. I argued for that because I felt it was the stronger position for the city to be in, which is we're now in a gray area that's subject to some interpretation and debate, which is really what drove us here, rather than having a default that one party might be really happy with but that the others aren't sure about. So there should be a lot of incentive, though, to stay out of the gray area that we've been in and to continue to work well together. So that's that agreement. The second half of the memo deals with a really short. One last thing on the jail medical, and that is we're proposing an effective date of July 1st, which is why the motion has that language in there, ratification. And that's why it's on your agenda tonight for action, is we're hoping to get all the parties on board yet this month and be a July 1 date. That's something that the finance directors who are involved kind of liked, the ease of 6 months versus 5/12. They like 1/2 better. So the second half of this then is the revision to the interlocal itself. This does 2 things. One, it establishes when Sedro-Woolley makes its payment to the county. There are 2 possible interpretations the way it's written today, neither of which makes sense. One would be impossible to do and the other is unreasonable. We thought the unreasonable one was the correct one. The county thought the impossible one made sense. In practice, we agreed to pay them by April 30th. This says that. It says, all right, you'll pay by April 30th. And then the second piece is for the county. You may recall, it's been a little while, that the county contributes a base amount of $5.5 million a year into the jail fund, and that 5.5 grows each year based upon certain cost factors. So that's intended to allow the county's general fund to continue to share its pro-rational share of the jail cost as the jail grows. Most of it ultimately will be funded through the new sales tax. What the second half of this agreement does is recognizes that it's difficult for the third year to be based upon the second year and the first year. So what the agreement says is you measure year 1, and the difference between year 1 and year 2 becomes the metric by which year 3 grows. And because of the timing, it doesn't really work. So what this does is makes it so you measure year 1, compare that with year 2, and that is applied to year 4. So over the course of 30 years, it saves the county about 30 different budget amendment type processes, and it just makes more sense. So it doesn't change the agreement substantively. The $5.5 million still grows. It just recognizes that we really have to look to different measurement years and have time built in to match up between the measurement years and the actual budget. So with that, there's two motions that I'm looking for tonight.
Well, I would ask why we couldn't do it in one, except the explanation might take just as long as what you just said. So I will make the first motion.
Take longer.
To approve and ratify the attached agreement on jail medical effective July 1st, 2015.
Second.
I got a question. Say somebody does something in Mount Vernon, rob a bank, whatever it might be, and they disappear and they come to Sedro-Woolley and get arrested. Who's responsible for that person?
Or the jail medical?
Yeah.
Well, under state law, it's the entity that affects the arrest. It seems to have some responsibility, although our practice has been that they would be in jail on a Mount Vernon charge, so Mount Vernon would be. But if that's a felony that they committed, then actually the county owns the felony jail medical.
That's what this.
After a certain point in time, which is sentencing.
Yeah, after they're 2 years later when they're convicted and sentenced.
Yeah,
So you rob a bank in Mount Vernon, Lynn gets you in Sedro-Woolley, who are responsible for your medical?
No, I think Mount Vernon would be.
Yeah.
Under that scenario. But they might have, Patsy just said, they have a warrant from us, which brings, and this is really what got us into this boat, and that's exactly what happened is, so that scenario happened, except I would have like a warrant from Sedro-Woolley for driving suspended third. And so now I'm in jail, and the medical costs would be split evenly between the felony charge in Mount Vernon and the DWLS third misdemeanor charge in Sedro-Woolley. It wasn't working very well, and that's the beauty of this scenario is it doesn't matter. Now the jail will continue to track it, so we'll have data as we look forward, but it will no longer matter. It's felon has a warrant, whatever, arrest him, get him to jail, and we have a system for dealing with the medical costs.
Any more questions? Okay, we got a motion by Councilmember Wagoner, second by Councilmember Kinzer, to approve and ratify the attached agreement on jail medical effective July 1st, 2015. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed unanimous. Now we need another motion.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the attached amendment to the jail interlocal agreement.
Okay, we got a motion by Councilmember Wagoner, a second by Councilmember Lemley, to approve the attached amendment to the jail interlocal agreement. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passes unanimous. Okay. We will go to, let's see, you want to do that right now? Start this late material. Where did I put it? And it's got peanuts in his mouth.
So, we're talking about the ambulance transport fee and collection policy late item, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
All right.
And we got this other one too.
So, first, I apologize for bringing this to you late. I do know how much you don't appreciate late materials. We got our Medicare number yesterday and our national provider identification number, which means we now have everything in place to bill for the service that we've been providing, except a council-adopted rate schedule and collection policy. And you don't have really a lot of room to maneuver on this because the interlocal agreement that you adopted between Skagit County and the city of Sedro-Woolley requires that you adopt the county-wide fee schedule, which is why I felt like I could probably bring this to you late, because it doesn't require a great deal of debate since you've already agreed to what the rates will be. And the logic, by the way, for that is that the EMS levies collected from all property taxpayers in Skagit County. So as the county distributes EMS levy money for EMS service provision, they expect that everyone would be treated the same. So there's a resident rate and a non-resident rate for the different levels of service. So that's the first piece of this resolution that you see is the county-wide rate schedule in a resolution format. Section 2 of the resolution would be the policy and procedures for patient billing and collection. And that basically deals with, when the debts are written off, who makes those calls, and so on. This policy is virtually identical to the one that the City of Anacortes and the Central Valley Ambulance Authority have. And that's intentional, as like the rates, there's been a deliberate attempt to have the system act like a system countywide. So that's the proposed resolution. The second part of this is an agreement with the Central Valley Ambulance Authority for billing. This agreement will definitely fall under the signature threshold, so this is something the mayor or I could have signed, as it will certainly be less than $10,000, but it exactly ties into what we're talking about. It's something I've told you about before, and it just made sense to me to bring it to you tonight as well. So the interlocal agreement allows the Central Valley Ambulance Authority to have access to our patient records for the purpose of coding and billing them. They'll essentially review, pre-bundle them, send them over to a company called Systems Design that will actually do the billing. And we've got all the forms signed. I think the fire chief reported back maybe 2-3 months ago about all of the documentation that we had to go through to get the Medicare number and insurance billing and those sorts of things. That was all done with the help of Systems Design. So with these two actions, we'll have our rate in place, we'll have an agreement with CVAA to allow them to help us do billing, and the only other action that I anticipate, and it depends on which company we use, that we may ask you at a future meeting to adopt some sort of relationship with a debt collection service to go after some of the hard-to-chase debt that comes from this service provider. So are there any questions on this?
Dean, is this good stuff?
Yes, it's the same contract that, like I said, the City of Anacortes has. The CVAA is a good outfit to work with. We've been working with forever. The CVAA is the old ambulances that were out of United. It's just morphed into the county group. So, yeah, it's a good program with them.
Thank you.
So, see if I can remember what, right now, the fire department, when they go out on a call, somebody else has to transport them, and this will allow them to transport and charge.
It will allow them to charge, because we're already transporting.
I didn't think you'd transport them to the hospital.
Yeah, we're already doing it right now, depending on which rig you got into. If you got into the red one, it was a free ride. If you got in the blue one, you had to pay.
Yeah. So this is something you were doing before, but you couldn't, it wasn't legal to charge.
We didn't have a Medicare number. We now have a Medicare number, and everybody would, in fact, Anacortes, when they called today, when I told them that we had our number, they were shocked because it took them 6 months to get theirs. It took us 6 weeks. So
now, and there's a distinction, though. You know, our past practice has been to do half a dozen transports a year-ish. You know, so basically, either really when the system was heavily taxed and the patients were appropriate, our intention by doing this now with the agreement with the county is to see that number climb to, you know, we're not sure. We've talked with CVAA about somewhere in the 100-plus transport range. So it's a fundamentally different service when it's not one every couple months, but in fact we're doing it a couple times a week.
So what's the estimate of how the city will come out costs? Will it just defer some of the cost, or will it, how's?
There's several new revenues that come into this. One is the $35 per call that the county is paying the city for each EMS response. The other then would be the rates that we collect for the transports. That's a difficult number to estimate because our payer mix is variable, but at the lower end. So if we do 100 transports and average maybe $200 a transport, $20,000, we'll get more than that out of the $35 per call cost. And I think we talked, I feel like it's been a few months now, what our objective was in doing this was to take those dollars and allocate them to our current staffing costs. So our proposal was to increase our pay to our volunteers and our part-time, paid part-time 12-hour shift employees. So essentially, there's no real extra cost to the city. I mean, it's some de minimis diesel and mileage on vehicle type costs. So it's really just paying our staffing to be more available and ready to do this work.
And the revenue will should exceed the cost by a fair amount?
Well, our intention is to spend the revenue on those costs. So I would call this a revenue neutral plan.
So it pays for itself.
Exactly right.
Right now, it's all going out. We're doing the work. we're doing the transports, we're getting nothing for it, and so we're paying the crews to do it, but there's no way to recoup that. This is going to help recoup that sum. But, it's like Aaron said, depending on the type of billing that you're going through, either Medicare or Medicaid or private, is where your rates,
There's a huge difference.
Huge difference. You're going to get probably pennies on the dollars, so that's just the way
With
the system
Medicare
is.
and Medicaid, yep. I'm for it.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt resolution number 923, TAC 15, a resolution adopting fees for ambulance transports and adopting a policy for collecting those fees.
We have a motion by Councilmember Wagoner, a second by Councilmember Lindley to approve resolution number 923, TAC 15, a resolution adopting fees for the ambulance transports and adopting a policy for collecting those fees. Any further discussion? Must be time to leave. All those in favor say aye.
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 Against? Passes. Okay, now we have another one. How about the attached agreement? Billing.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve the attached agreement for billing with the Central Valley Ambulance Authority.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilmember Wagoner, a second by Councilmember Lindley to approve the attached agreement for billing with Central Valley Ambulance Authority. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed unanimous. Okay, we will be going to item 12. It's the first reading, proposed amendments to the Sedro-Woolley Municipal Code, Chapter 16-28, binding site plan. First reading, this would be John.
Good evening. So, as part of the Northern State Project, we've reviewed our code just to make sure that all of the parts are working well. And one of the very small items that we noticed is in front of you today. When Northern State Project moves forward, it would be in the public zone, and the property would likely be subdivided into smaller parcels for lease purposes by the port for each individual user. So the way commercial subdivisions are done is usually by binding site plan, which is an alternate form of land subdivision that's typically used for commercial and also in like light industrial plants. You get like tracts all throughout an area that are leased out to various users. When we reviewed our binding site plan code, we realized that there was a discrepancy between the type of process that is used. In our procedures code, it says it's processed as a type 2, which is a more or less administrative process. And in the binding site plan code, it's a type 3, which requires a higher level of review through hearing examiner. So we wanted to tidy that up and make them consistent. And while we're at it, we also added in the binding site plan code that public zone is also a place where you can do a binding site plan. So these are very minor changes. Went to the Planning Commission. They reviewed it and made a recommendation in favor of making the changes. If you look, there's actually just 2 spots in this big packet where there's any changes made to it. On page 66 and 67 are the only changes to it. So the first read. If you have any questions, fire away.
No questions? Okay, we'll go to committee reports and reports from officers, and we'll start with Chief Tucker. You
pretty much saw everything I got to report. We're hoping our first two guys get out of training by the time we get our next young lady out of the academy in about 2 weeks. So they're on a fast track. Other than that, the other two will be training for the next 2.5 months.
Take you a year to get to know everybody's name.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Chief Klinger.
I don't know, I can't remember if we reported that we'd lost 3 more firemen to 2 to Boeing fire and 1 to Bellingham fire. But the good news is that we picked up 2. So it was almost a status quo. So, but it's a good thing to see that our volunteers and part-time guys are getting hired full-time.
Yeah, I drove by and there's only like 4 cars over there, right?
Yeah, well, it's vacation season too for the guys in quarters. So, yeah, that's it, Mayor.
Hey, John?
Okay, well, building department's still very busy. We received another 7 single-family residential building permits since I've spoken to you last, on top of the 21 or so that are under construction and 15 or so that have finished in the past few months. So it's been extremely busy. We're looking at possibly getting a little bit of help in the inspection area, as we're having about 6 or 7 inspections a day, which is about half a day's work. And then in the planning front, the Planning Commission last night, excuse me, held a meeting to look at the buildable lands analysis that was in draft final form. And what that buildable lands analysis has showed that our urban growth area is short by many acres in order to accommodate commercial and industrial growth. It also showed that we're a little bit short to accommodate the projected residential growth, but just that's the residential component's going to be pretty easy to manage, add a few acres here or there, and that should be pretty manageable without a whole lot of contention from anywhere. Now, the other part's a little bit more tricky. Is we see that we're short on industrial land in particular, and also short on some commercial land. The Planning Commission held a meeting yesterday, and they discussed how much they would like to accommodate as commercial and how much they'd like to accommodate as industrial. They came up with a recommendation. We're trying to accommodate 359 additional jobs that our land base currently cannot support based on our buildable lands analysis. So there's not enough room within city limits to accommodate 20 years worth of projected jobs growth. So we definitely want to be able to make sure that we're going to have enough land to support the projected jobs. Jobs are very important to the city and the livelihood of the residential community as well. So it's been a long-standing interest of the council to accommodate for industrial jobs. That's the message that I've heard for years, and reminded the Planning Commission of that as we went through and tried to determine how much of the land would be mixed commercial and how much of it would be industrial. I apologize, I don't have the figures right in front of me. We had the meeting last night, ran fairly late for a Planning Commission meeting last night. Not a well-attended meeting by the public, though. So the next step is to determine where to put that land. And so this is where the Planning Commission spent a lot of time trying to figure that out, because where you put industrial land and where you put commercial land affects neighbors, much more so than residential land. Not many people are going to object to a low-density residential neighborhood next door, or they might object less than an industrial plant. So they began the task of trying to determine where to designate zoning for the industrial and commercial land. looking at the available terrain outside of the city is where we started, say, just trying to determine, leave status quo of our zoning in the existing city limits and look at adding commercial and industrial outside the city limits. We have to go north, again, because that's really where we can only grow. We can't go west because of farms, we can't go south because of the river and floodplains, and we can't go east because of farms, floodplain, and river. So more or less north, and the character of the community north of the city limits is already fairly residential. So I think the Planning Commission's thinking so far has been that's probably not the best place for mixed commercial and industrial. The terrain doesn't really support industrial. So now they've been working hard trying to figure out where in the city limits might be able to be rezoned for industrial and commercial land. And that's not going to be an easy task. They've made some recommendations, and we're going to be holding a public hearing on the issue at the next Planning Commission meeting in August. Just wanted to let you know that process there will be, we're talking about changing people's zoning from residential to industrial. So I want to be sure that the community is aware of what the Planning Commission is going to be talking about and ultimately what's going to be coming to the City Council. And I want the Council to know that when people start getting this message and hearing that there's potential changes coming, there will be people that are unhappy. So just be prepared for that.
Can you elaborate on what the recommendations have been?
Pardon me?
Can you elaborate on what the recommendations are?
So without a map, it's a little bit difficult. But so far, and remember, this is just a recommendation so far. This isn't something that the Planning Commission has formalized and is ready to send to the council. This is their brainstorming, sitting down, working together, understanding the community and the terrain as it is, and making some hard decisions that we're going to go to public hearing with and then get feedback. And then ultimately it's going to be a tough choice for the council to determine where new industrial and commercial land is going to be. We're not going to be able to make everybody happy, unfortunately, in this case. So what they've recommended so far is to change the zoning of some residential property north of Jones Road and west of the tracks, east of Birch Lane, which is more or less where Garden of Eden goes up. This is also the area that the council, well, I'm not sure if the council recommended, but it's also something that the Planning Commission looked at, I believe, last year, an area, and we had a meeting on that and had a lot of comments from the community in that area. Not all in support, but there was some support as well from the property owners. So it's an area that this proposal has already come up. The people in that area have already voiced displeasure. So we certainly want to let them know that this is coming up again, and we expect that we'll be getting feedback again. So the idea would be just adding a little bit of residential north of our fire station, both on the east and west side of Highway 20, Fire Station 2. I need to do the math to figure out exactly how much, but it's going to be roughly 50 acres, and then rezoning of roughly 35 to 40 acres of residential zone that is both in the city and in the urban growth area. So some of this property is not actually in the city limits, but it is in our existing urban growth area. And that would be in that area north of East Jones Road. And then adding a very small component of mixed commercial around the intersection of Bassett, something small to accommodate like a small market or a gas station type use. They were thinking somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 acres.
That's a good idea.
One of the property owners was at the meeting last night, and they were in favor of a little bit of commercial right there, and they got to work out the details of the viability of commercial in that area. But they're thinking that gives them good options for marketing it. A gas station might be something that they can make happen. Maybe not immediately, but as we see our growth going north, it stands to reason to have a little bit of commercial up in that area as we grow up the hill. Again, this is really just beginning stages of this, so when the message starts getting out to the community, this is just coming up, just starting to let people know about it. Frequently people will say, how did this happen without us knowing about it? Well, it just happened, and we're going to let people know about it. So that's all I got for planning. Thanks.
I got one comment, Aaron. As council members, if they might attend the planning meeting, or hear the public comment, or what can they do and shouldn't do, because it might come to them later.
Yeah, so what John's working on with the Planning Commission right now would be legislative actions, so area-wide considerations, so it's okay for the council to attend if they want. It's in my mind, it's not great to have council commenting at the Planning Commission, because it's almost like you're a super delegate in the audience saying, well, when I see it at the council table, this is what I want to see. It's better for the council as a group to provide direction. It can be confusing for Planning Commission to have individual members out there, but certainly if you want to listen, this is different than a quasi-judicial matter where I would ask you to not attend because it just causes problems later. But for legislative, you can go and sit and see and listen.
Good. Okay, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick update on Public Works activities. Green Street, Dean, Virginia sewer projects well underway. They're still on Green Street having some soil issues there, but they're moving along. Should be turning the corner first of next week. Nathan's crews are doing a couple of things around town right now. They're at 137 North Central on the Tilley's place, constructing the ditch line. They've been removing trees and cleaning that alignment up and started digging the ditch today. And they'll move from there to the 205 North Reed project and get the rest of the brush and stumps off of that site and do a little bit of grading on that and build that ditch and finish that up over the next couple weeks. We also have part of the crew out completing the grading of the new Babe Ruth field at Janicki Fields. So they've been pretty busy with all of those things, and Solid Waste has been supporting them with containers to remove the brush. I wanted to direct your attention to the grants section. It's page 2 and 3 of 5 in the memo that's in your packet. You heard about the STPR program in the earlier motion that was passed. In addition to that, there's a number of stormwater or ecology programs that are going on right now. We have received the contract documents for the local source control specialist program. I've been telling you about that for some time. It's a program we participated in for the last 4 years. That's been sent to us in contract form. It's a $51,000 contract, and that'll be on your agenda next time for your approval. We've also received notice that the Stormwater Capacity Grants Program, which provides $50,000 over a 2-year period to support our stormwater activities, is available. That was part of the budget that was finally passed at the state level. We simply have to submit an application for that. There's no match. I am working on that, and I'll submit that in the next week or so. There are a couple of other stormwater opportunities there that I may or may not take advantage of. There's the Stormwater Pre-Construction Grant Program. It's a maximum of $250,000 per project with no match requirement. That's for design only for projects that provide benefit to the waters of the state. Would be things like low-impact development conversions of parking lots and things like that. I haven't conjured up a project for that one yet. Still thinking about it. The other one is the grants of regional or statewide significance, which is a separate program that assists agencies with implementation of their NIPTES stormwater requirements. That one's got some pretty big strings on it. It is $300,000 with no match. Both of those are due on July 30th, so I won't be able to bring those back to council. I'll be discussing that with administration, whether there's anything of worth for us to submit on that. Wanted you to be aware of them, though. There's also a list of the TIB projects that we're planning to submit on. I will have a council memo for you at the next session discussing the match requirements for that and requesting, as we did with the STPR program tonight, your authorization for the mayor to sign those and for us to submit those to TIB. Those are due on August the 21st. So that's pretty much what we're going to be up to over the next few weeks. Thank you.
I have a question for you, Mark. I was wondering when, I noticed they're also working on Tesrick Park, and I was just wondering when that's going to be done, just out of curiosity.
Don't take any dogs on that.
The field north of us here?
Yeah.
Yes. We've been working with Rotary to demolish the old ball field, and as you probably have seen out there, the fence has been removed, all that's going to, and the dugouts removed. The grass was killed a couple of weeks ago. My understanding is that one of the Rotarians is going to take a vacation and start working on the grading for the site on August the 1st. And he has a 2-week vacation, so they're going to be doing a big push the first 2 weeks of August on the site. That's as much as I know right now. We've seen a revised set of plans and profiles for that. Aaron has those. He can talk more about that. Modifying what was the original kind of high-cost version simplifies it somewhat. And I haven't studied that in detail, but I believe that's what they're planning to build there over the course of the rest of this year. So,
thank you.
You're welcome.
Aaron?
Well, it's been really busy this summer for some reason. Seems like there's just a lot going on. Atypical. I really only have one item tonight that I'd like to get some action on, which is this letter that I just gave you from Mark Reka. We met with the commissioners on, was that Monday, Mike? Monday this week. And Commissioner Janicki made a motion to establish a work group that would be comprised of officials from the 4 cities and the county's EMS department, so 5 parties, to review the alternatives for the service delivery of EMS service in Skagit County, which is kind of a continuation of the last decade's worth of studies that I think at that meeting Commissioner Janicki said when I got elected they handed me a stack that was this thick of recommendations, and we haven't implemented any of them. The Commission voted to go ahead and establish that work group, and as part of that process, they asked that the councils for the 4 cities make a motion approving the city's participation in the work group. And so, again, the purpose of the work group will be to look at the different options that were presented in the most recent consultant's report, which are basically a status quo, a fire-based, a joint service delivery model, a county department, and then a private model. And then report back to the county with what option seems to make the most sense to the city partners. So we'd like to participate, and I would appreciate a motion from the council, supporting and authorizing the city to participate in this work group.
Why wouldn't you just go?
Well, so the dynamic of that meeting was that Commissioner Janicki made the motion, Commissioner Wiesen seconded it, And Commissioner Dahlstedt then said, whoa, we're afraid. He said basically, well, wouldn't you want to hear from the city councils before you do any of this, to make sure that the mayor who's sitting in the audience, all the mayors are there, and the staff who are all sitting there are representing their cities. And so this is an unusual request, in my opinion, because obviously this is what the executive branch does, and at least in our city, we do always come back and tell you what's going on. We're doing these meetings, we're working on these projects. It's really no surprise to you that we're continuing to have conversations about ambulance service delivery, but because Commissioner Dahlstedt, who's the chairman, brought it up before he voted against the motion, that was what was included in the letter. So that's what they've asked us to do. So I don't see any harm in saying.
And like I said, I sit right next to him. I said, I'm all for it. Bring it back to our council. Mm-hmm. So I know how our council thinks. You know? It's not like. It's like Commissioner Janicki said, she has a stack for what, a decade?
That's about 10 years.
Same answer every time. You know, fire base.
I think they've been doing that study for 20 years and getting the same results and just not doing anything.
Yeah.
Well, I can't figure out how to get the job writing the rewrite of the study, because you pay more for each revision. But in any case, it'd be a motion to authorize the city's participation in the EMS work group. That would be appreciated.
I make a motion to participate, for Sedro-Woolley to participate in the work group. Is that it?
Works great. Feels goofy because it is goofy.
Second.
Who's second? Okay, we got a motion by Councilmember Cornegay, a second by Councilmember Kinzer to approve a motion that our city will be in a work group. Yes, that's what it said. Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Against? Passed unanimous. Okay.
Great, thank you. We'll get to work, and of course I'll keep you briefed as we go through the process of what we're working on and how it could look and what possible changes may be recommended and how they could affect our fire department. One thing I guess I'd like to just make clear at the outset, this was Commissioner Dahlstedt's other concern, is, well, will the cities, if it went fire-based, will the cities do any work outside their cities? And of course, Sedro-Woolley has one of the largest response areas in the county and leaves the city on a daily basis, as does the city of Anacortes, and they provide ALS transport and care outside their city limits. The answer is obviously, and of course, the cities would be working within response areas to provide a county-wide system and service. So it was a red herring that was thrown out, and it's frustrating sometimes to be in the audience when you can't jump up and say, oh, of course that's not an issue, absolutely. You know, nobody's going to be left out of a county-wide system when it's a county-wide provision of services. So, you know, any recommendations that would come out of the work group would ensure that there's, you know, a level of service provided county-wide that's funded by a county-wide levy. So I put that out there, and just in case anybody asks, apparently somebody sometime at some point said that some city wouldn't leave its corporate limits, and I have no idea what the history is. That's just not been my experience anywhere, and certainly not here in Sedro-Woolley. All right, that's all I've got. Thank you.
Patsy?
I would like to state how pleased I am to have been able to witness the swearing in of 4 police officers this evening.
That's a record.
Yeah, it's quite a historic moment.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
Yeah. Rick?
Thanks to the street crew for highlighting the ADA sidewalk curbs. That yellow stripe really defines where they are so people can see. They jumped on that real quick after the 4th, so it makes them noticeable, so hopefully we won't have any more incidents.
They were already working on it when you made the request.
Now that's fast.
He knew I was coming.
You know, I think council members have
Keith?
I attended the first free concert that we are one of the sponsors of. It was well attended, a lot of fun, and I recommend everybody go. The next one is coming Sunday, but there's a skip, so I think it's August 2nd.
August 2nd, yeah.
Of which there's also a soccer tournament that day, so parking might be at a premium because it doesn't get over until 6.
Oh,
Lots of fun. That's all I have.
going to be a busy area.
I had something that somebody asked me to bring to the council meeting. They couldn't be here today, and someone, a friend of mine, found a used hypodermic needle at one of the ball fields. And we all know this is a problem. This is a national problem, but I would just like all these intelligent minds here to think about it. What can we do to be innovative to help solve this problem of them being disposed of here and there? It's created a very dangerous situation for a child, and if they're going to be around in parks, I don't know. I don't have a solution right now, but I'd just like to ask everybody to think about it. What can we do?
You know that Phoenix Recovery's recently started running a needle exchange
Yeah,
at
they
the
do exchange
UGH
them.
parking lot on a weekly basis. I don't know if getting the word out would be useful. I'm not exactly sure
Yeah.
who uses that or how it works.
I haven't seen any flyers about that anywhere other than just at the hospital. So I don't know how we can go about
It's been a pretty successful program from what we've heard. I've talked to Corky. She's kind of running that program, and they had a one glitch early on in Mount Vernon when the Mount Vernon Police Department stopped by to say hi and ask how they were doing. Nobody showed up. Otherwise, they get a steady stream of customers. Word of mouth is getting out through the sources of people that need to exchange needles. It's a pretty popular program for that group.
I went through a streak where I found them on my walks, a bunch of them, and I'd call the police and they'd come and get them, so.
Yeah, and if you look around, if you just look around when you're you out on your walks a lot, look on the ground, and you'll see the remnants of needles, caps, little plastic baggies with the corners tore off. They're in a lot of places. I walk up and down the hill in Burlington Hill. They're on the hill in Burlington. They're on the streets in Mount Vernon. It's everywhere.
But when I called the police, they were there within 5 minutes, 10 minutes to.
I tell them every time you call to run there as soon as they can. Yes.
And all of our vehicles have sharps containers in it too. If you see us, you can say, hey. So we can collect those also.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've seen in Bellingham, I've seen just containers and businesses that are, I guess, Mallard's is where I noticed one where people can just go and put the needles in there, so at least they're in a safe place. It's not an exchange, but I mean, at least it's a safer place to do it. It's not out in the open. It's in one of the restrooms. And
But that presumes that somebody who's irresponsible enough to abuse their body will be responsible enough to go in there and put it to
they were really
help other
well
people.
used. They were really well used in there. I mean, it was almost full when I see it.
Maybe we need them in our park bathrooms.
That's a terrible thought, but maybe we do.
Maybe not even the park, but maybe just a local business that, I mean, I'm just saying, somehow it seems to work for Mallard's Ice Cream in Bellingham. The alternative is that they're on the streets, and I don't think that's a good alternative.
Okay, anything else, Brendan?
Nope.
Jermaine?
Nope.
Kevin?
Nothing.
Motion to adjourn? Oh, sorry.
No, I'm just kidding.
Steak dinner.
We got a motion to adjourn. Anybody second it?
What about that hour-long executive session?
Oh, that's the next meeting.
It's steak night.
Good luck with that.
All those in favor stand. Thank you for coming.